Today, we'll be talking about internships at AeroVironment. You should, after participating in this event, walk away feeling more clarity around our company and our internship opportunities. To introduce myself, I'm your host today. My name is Julie Carpenter. I joined the People and Culture team at AeroVironment in 2017 and currently manage our internship program, outreach events, and university relations. I'm also captain of AV's recreational and corporate games soccer team, AVFC. I'm also a SoCal native, go Dodgers. And my co-pilots today are my cats, Ozzy and Butters. Okay, about us. I'm going to tell you a bit more about the company, and then we'll move into the best part of this event, which is hearing about our internship program from those who have firsthand experience, our former and current AV interns. Also, you'll want to pay close attention as we will have a swag giveaway contest at the end of the presentation for those who are able to answer a few questions the quickest. So fast facts, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary year. We were founded in 1971, so 2021, we're coming up quickly upon it. And we have now over 850 employees. We are growing quickly over the past few years, and our headquarters is in Southern California, Simi Valley to be exact, though we have offices in Wilmington, Massachusetts, Lawrence, Kansas, and Huntsville, Alabama as well. And there you'll see Wahid Nawabi, who is our current president and CEO. Some company history and highlights. The company was founded by the late Dr. Paul McCready, an aeronautical engineer who devoted his life to developing more efficient transportation vehicles that could do more with less. Dr. McCready was awarded the first Kramer Prize for human-powered flight. You'll see in the pictures one of our early high-altitude solar planes, which helped pave the way for some of our more recent projects, which you may hear about later. A notable achievement and named one of Time Magazine's 50 Best Inventions was developed in 2006 when DARPA asked our company to build a tiny remote-controlled aircraft resembling a hummingbird, now known as the Nano Hummingbird, which can fly all different directions, sideways, left and right, forward and backward, rotate clockwise and counterclockwise, and hover midair. Shortly thereafter, AeroVironment became a publicly traded company. We continue to design, build, test, and manufacture unmanned aircraft vehicles that provide actionable intelligence and unique capabilities to both military and commercial customers around the world. So you're here today to learn about early career opportunities, specifically our internship program. And AeroVironment has a long history of providing internships. We are adding more and more opportunities as we continue to grow. Pictured here are two engineers who worked on the Mars helicopter. One is Ben Peipenberg. He joined AeroVironment as an intern. Not pictured here, but also another intern, Sarah Langberg, who worked on this project during her internship, which is quite exciting, and we're very proud of them. All right, so employee perks and benefits. I wanted to highlight this slide because many of our interns join AeroVironment full-time after their internships. We love to hire our interns. And so once you're hired as a full-time employee, you can enjoy the full range of benefits that are listed here. I won't go in depth on each and every one, but you can learn more about all of our benefits offerings by visiting our career page, which I will link later in the presentation. Of these benefits, our interns enjoyed the 980 workweek schedule, which means you have every other Friday off. You work a little bit longer during the week, but then you have that 3-day weekend. They also received paid holiday, sick time, and if they are working on site, we do have electric vehicle charging stations, which is part of our commitment to sustainability. And now we get to the best part. We've arrived at the question and answers. First, I'll cover the basics of our AV internships, which hopefully will answer some of the questions that were submitted ahead of time. We also will go over some frequently asked questions, and then the best part of the entire presentation will be hearing from our very own AeroVironment interns. So the basics. Many questions were asked. Are your internships paid? Yes, they are. So all of our summer interns are paid, and I have listed all of the, most of the engineering roles, I should say, on that left-hand side of the screen. I won't read through them, but you'll be able to see the various and probably most common internships that we post, but we do have more. It's not an all-inclusive list, but we have year after year hired these types of roles. And then our internship locations. I did mention that we have a Huntsville, Alabama location. We don't have any interns there. However, we do have a good portion of interns at our Simi Valley, California office, our headquarters, a few in our Moorpark, California office, which is just a few miles down the street from Simi. And then we had 3 in Lawrence, Kansas this last summer, and then another handful out of our Wilmington, Massachusetts office. And the question was also asked, which roles in which locations? It's pretty even across the board. There's a lot of aeromechanical that will be in our Wilmington office, and we're also going to add some electrical engineering, software engineering, certainly. But that full gamut on the left-hand side, we do have out of our Simi Valley and Moorpark locations. Minimum qualifications, another kind of common question that comes up is eligibility. So you must be currently enrolled in a college or university program, entering your sophomore year or above, be able to work our standard schedule, which is that 980 work week. And that's during summer months with start dates in May and in June. The program runs 8 to 12 weeks typically for an internship. We have gone a little bit longer in certain cases, but typically it's no longer than 6 months total, but 8 to 12 weeks is your standard. And then you must be a US citizen, US permanent resident, a green card holder, or asylee refugee to be eligible for these roles. And then again, if you're hired, you will need to complete and clear background and drug screen. FAQs. A lot of you are graduating in 2021, so congratulations, that's awesome, an achievement for sure. If you are not entering a graduate program or a PhD program, then you would want to look at our full-time positions, not our internships, because you must be actively enrolled or currently enrolled in a program to be an intern. However, check it out. We have entry-level positions that do open up occasionally. I think we have some in electrical engineering right now, not as many in mechanical entry level, but like I said, we will be hiring interns. So if you're a student, then you would be eligible for the internship. And another common question was, will your 2021 internships be remote or in person? This past year, we had a majority of our interns working remotely. However, it depends on the position. And you'll see one of our panelists is actually in office right now, just due to the nature of his role as an intern. It requires him to be on site. So it's a mix, it's a blend. I can't give you a definitive answer right now, but we are working on it. Certainly we want to return people on site when we can to give you that hands-on experience, but we still want to provide a great experience, even if it has to be virtual, and give you that career experience. What's the interview process like? That came up a few times as well. And typically that just consists of a recruiter phone screen, followed by a manager phone screen, and then a panel video virtual interview. And then again, that question came up a few times. Does AeroVironment hire international candidates or sponsor work visas? You have to have a US citizenship. It can be a dual citizenship as long as you have the US citizenship or permanent resident status or asylee refugee. So those are our frequently asked questions. We don't sponsor work visas. But moving on, our panel members, I'm proud to introduce our panel members to you all. And I will leave the screen up so you can read through and get a good idea of who their faces are as they talk. So going down the list, representing our aeromechanical and product engineering departments, we have Haley Brashears. Representing our autonomy group, we have Malcolm Tisdale. Representing the software engineering group, we have Nicholas Sprague. Representing our systems test engineering group, we have Thomas Friedman. And representing our guidance, navigation, and controls department, we have Vince Hill. So thank you so much, panel members, for joining us today. The next slide will list the questions that each of these panel members will go through. So we'll start with Haley. She'll go through a list of questions that they'll all answer the same. And then we'll switch to the questions that were submitted by you. And I will ask different panel members some of the questions that you all provided. We'll also have that Q&A tool to go through at the end for anything else that comes up. And then don't forget, we have our swag giveaway contest at the very end. So without further ado, Haley, if you will join us and unmute. And this is list of questions that you'll go through. All of our panel members have this list of questions, so I won't leave this up so that you're able to see their faces, but they'll tell us about themselves, what school, how'd they hear about AV, what roles they were hired for, projects they worked on, down the list, what favorite parts and advice for our attendees today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Haley, and I am from Orange County, California. I currently go to Cal Poly Pomona, and I am studying mechanical engineering. How did I hear about the company? I heard about it from actually a family friend. He currently has a job at AV, and he told me how they make drones for the military, and I thought that was really interesting. And it's also for a great cause, so I decided to apply, and luckily I got it. I was hired on 2 summers ago as a product engineering intern, and this past summer I was with the aeromechanical group as an intern too. I got to do a lot of different projects, but 2 of the projects I got to do one was on composites. It was making test plans and test documents. It was a lot of research, but I gained a lot of experience from it. The second project was on a Puma. We had a rudder mount that was causing too much friction. So I needed to design or come up with a new way to make it cause less friction and also have the same pull-out force so that when flying, the tail wouldn't come off of the drone. So that's just a couple of the projects that I got to do. My favorite part about AV is that you get to be on a few different projects. You won't ever just be on one single project. So maybe you get a project that isn't exactly what you want to be doing. You'll have multiple projects, and from all of them, you gain a ton of experience. And some advice I would give to you guys applying is that you will be challenged, but also at the same time, you will gain a lot of experience from this internship, and you'll meet a ton of people and have a ton of connections after.
All right, I'm Malcolm Tisdale. I was originally born in Connecticut, but I grew up in the UK. And now I'm actually on a gap year from Caltech, doing mechanical engineering major and possibly either doing aerospace or controls minor. So how I found out about AV was actually through working at a lab at Caltech. We were collaborating with Dr. Tokumaru, an AV employee, and through him and the interesting work that we were doing at the time, I thought I'd reach out to AV for a possible summer internship, which thankfully worked out. So, so far, I have been employed over the summer and have now been continued on until December. And in that time, as an autonomy intern, I've been able to do a whole host of projects, including embedded systems work, some controls work, mechanical and aerospace engineering and design. Most notably, I got to work on a project that was related to the Mars helicopter and a potential robotic arm. And then as well, a really low power, lightweight gimbal, which were both hugely exciting projects. I think something that's unique about AV is especially the people and culture that's cultivated. Everyone seems to have their own set of passions and interests, and everyone's really motivated not only in what they do at work, but after work as well. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to take advantage of the various groups of AV employees who either go out flying RC planes or, as Julie mentioned, play soccer. But if you walk around the office, then you can see all these different projects that people have out, and I always really enjoy that. Some advice I'd give to anyone who's interested at AV, I would say, reflecting back on my onboarding experience, I wish I was a little bit more clear about what exactly I wanted to do. I at first had the mentality that I'd say, I'm open to everything and anything because I'm a new person here and I don't have the know-how to say or decide what I can work on. But what I would really recommend is be forward and say what you're interested in, because there's tons of different projects at AV, especially as well. I came in thinking that there would be pretty much all military-based projects. And as someone who is less favored to that kind of work, I was actually really surprised and glad to find other kinds of R&D projects that fit my interests.
Thank you. And next up, we have Nicholas.
Hi. So I'm originally from Massachusetts, but I moved to California about 7 or 8 years ago. It's been nice here since then. I went to UC Irvine and I graduated with a degree in computer science. I originally heard about AV from a family member, and after doing a bit of research, I was very interested in the company because it looks like it's on the cutting edge of aircraft development, which I think is a very interesting field. I was originally hired as a software intern, and then later I got hired full-time as a software quality engineer, which means that I'm working on tests for the UA control software, like writing automated tests. And one of the things that I think is coolest about working for AV is, besides working with UAs, which is very interesting in itself, but it's also one thing I do enjoy is that even though writing tests might sound a little bit repetitive, but it is fun to try and optimize them as best as I can. And for advice, if you want to apply for an internship, I would say that the relevant technologies for at least a software development position would be C# and CSS, since I do a lot of work with the UI of the aircraft control applications. And just a general tip is that if you have several software projects that you've done, it's probably better to have a few that you can talk very in detail about instead of a whole bunch that you can just sort of remember. And that's it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. Next up, Thomas, would you share your responses to some of the questions?
So, hi everyone, I'm Thomas. I'm currently in my 3rd year of aerospace engineering at UCLA with an engineering science tech brev. And I first joined AV in June of 2019. So after my freshman year, worked through September 2019, then came back this summer, June 2020 through, I'm actually working still currently. Well, part-time, but so overall I've been here for about a little less than a year, I'd say cumulatively at this point. I first heard of AV actually somewhat randomly through reading about the nano hummingbird several years before I even went into engineering. And that was looking back on that when I actually heard of AV in a more engineering context. I realized that I actually heard of a particular company product before even really knowing of the company and the other ventures it does. And I would say the biggest factor that drew me to work for AV was the company culture that was even evident from the outside looking in, and I would say is even more evident from the inside, which is essentially that of a small company culture combined with the resources of a medium to large company, which, at least in my opinion, is the optimal balance for engineering work. So I would say that's definitely the primary factor that motivated me and keeps motivating me in my work at AeroVironment. My current role is as systems test engineering intern, and essentially most of what I do is in support of systems test and analysis for various company products, both on the UAS and TMS side, which involves a lot of regression testing work, a lot of MATLAB and Simulink work, and some other software depending on the individual task. And I would say my favorite part of working for the company is that you're really able to contribute to projects in a wide variety of areas, depending on, like, I believe it was what Malcolm said, depending on what your interests are, you really have an opportunity to branch out into pretty much any area you want to at AeroVironment with the proper motivation and willingness to learn. And I would say that's my favorite part about working for the company to date. And in terms of skills and experience preferred for candidates, I would say, at least from my perspective, MATLAB and Simulink is a very useful skill to have because it's used a lot in industry for both data analysis and visualization, as well as creating models. And in addition, more soft skills such as technical communication, effective teamwork, and resource management definitely come in and have come in useful for me throughout my work. So I would say those are the two largest areas which I would definitely recommend candidates to have skills in. I believe I'm pushing my time a little, so that is all for me.
Thank you, Thomas. Very helpful.
Hey guys, I think Julie might have lagged out here, but it's okay. I know that I'm last. So my name is Vincent Hill. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and I go to the University of Alabama. I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, a master's degree in aerospace engineering, and I'm working on my PhD in aerospace engineering as well, simultaneous while working at AV. I think I saw, Desiree, Roll Tide. The way I heard about this company is because their AV is kind of like legendary in the flexible aircraft research area because of the high altitude solar aircraft that they spent 20, 30 years developing, from the Pathfinder to Helios and now to the HAPS aircraft, the Sunglider. So I knew, doing research in that area for my master's, I knew about Helios. And so I reached out to AV, kind of gave them a little elevator pitch, and was able to convince them to give me an internship. And from there, this past summer, 2020, I spent my summer in Southern California as opposed to Alabama. And I was working in the guidance, navigation, and control of our large all-solar aircraft, both in designing the algorithms for the aircraft, for the control of the aircraft, but also participating in the flight testing. So we had 2 flights this summer, and I was on the flight crew for both. As someone who'd only been working at the company for a few months. And I think that's really the cool thing about AV, is that they're not afraid to push you in the deep end and let you swim. As an intern, I directly developed control algorithms for the aircraft that hadn't been finished yet, and they were on the airplane during flights. And I can't think of any other aircraft manufacturer where someone who has only been working at the company for a little while would be given that opportunity. And I think that's really the coolest thing about AV, in my opinion. Advice for people interested in applying. I didn't go through a traditional path. I reached out to someone at AV who, a technical person at AV, and kind of gave him an elevator pitch of like what my skills are and that sort of thing. And through that, I was able to get the internship, which became a full-time job. I was hired full-time as a guidance, navigation, and control engineer back in August. So really, networking is like one of the most important things. It's almost as important as your skills. And if you can get in that way, it's much easier than applying for hundreds of jobs and getting like 3 interviews like I've done in the past.
Yeah, thank you, Vince, for sharing, and thank you for covering while my connection went in and out. And since you were just speaking, maybe I'll throw one question at you. We'll go through some questions that were provided ahead of time. So Vince, are projects mostly team-based or individual?
Yeah, so something about industry is that everything's team-based. There is no such thing as an individual project, but within the team project, you'll have individual things that you're working on that you own that you have to deliver on, or the entire project and team is going to suffer. So I think that's really something that is different from school, where you're doing your homework, maybe you have a team project where 4 out of the 6 people in your group don't do anything. That doesn't really happen in industry. It's everyone has their tasks and they all build up in a pyramid to create one final product.
Great. Yeah. And then Nicholas, here's a question that came up that I think you could answer well is, what does a typical intern day look like? And we talked about virtual work from home versus in-person. Can you share?
Yeah, so I can't actually talk that much about in-person work because I've only been here for a few months. So it's always been during the quarantine for me. But when working from home, I essentially log onto the computer in the morning and check my emails, see if if anything happened after last night. And then since I'm just working on software, I can essentially just do all my tasks basically until 12 o'clock or so, have lunch, and then continue doing tasks. There's really not much special going on. There is one notable thing, which is a daily stand-up meeting for software, because it's a agile environment. So that's one of the notable features. And we're in the meeting, we all talk about what we did yesterday and what we're planning on doing today.
Yeah, communication becomes essential when you're working from home. But I think our teams have really done a great job of that. So thank you for sharing kind of what that looks like, the team meetings. And
yeah, one thing I do is to use instant messaging to ask my people I'm working with questions like all the time.
Very good. Next question we got was, what is the company culture like? And I think, Haley, you touched on this, but maybe if you could elaborate a little bit on our AV company culture.
Yeah, the AV culture is, everybody is incredibly nice. They really are there to help you out. You can go to them with any questions you have. The company is also very open with what they do, how the company is going, because once a month they will have a town hall meeting that usually the vice president will go to. Sometimes the CEO may go to also, and they will talk about the company, what's going on, and you can also, any questions you have, they'll also answer them. Also, everybody there usually has very good communication skills, because you have a lot of projects that you'll be with people, be working in groups on. So you need to be able to communicate, accept feedback, and really be able to take what you learn from it.
Awesome. And Malcolm, you said you had something that you wanted to share too about the culture from your standpoint.
Yeah, so I guess I touched on it earlier, which is that like the passions that everyone has at AV and personal projects that everyone has going on as well. So, something that's notable that I was really surprised by is this applies more for in-person, but AV is also willing to, if you're working on a personal project, as long as it doesn't use too many resources, people at AV would be willing to help you, or you can use AV facilities as well. So that's like a really nice perk that I've enjoyed, and also kind of enjoyed seeing the fruits of in other people's projects. And I feel like generally, like more in an online context, as Nicholas said, you can instant message anyone, and I think everyone's really opening to talking. And no matter if they're you're an intern and they're the CEO, or you're some senior controls engineer, is always willing to talk, and more than willing to actually. People are excited if you have questions and are always willing to answer.
Great. Thank you very much. The culture is something I could go on and on about. I love it. I mean, people and culture, it resonates with me. But thank you so much for sharing. Next question we had was, what are some of the expected skills or requirements for an intern? Thomas, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I would say, at least in my experience, personally, in terms of technical skills, what I use a lot of MATLAB and Simulink, as I mentioned earlier. So definitely knowledge in those areas would be useful. I feel like more broadly, just any programming experience would be useful, just because really programming languages, once you learn one, the syntax is different between them, but the concepts and the how you use them are largely the same with some differences depending on type. But so definitely experience in programming, both, well, Simulink is block programming and MATLAB is text programming, but they're both the same idea. But a more, I guess, an area that's less emphasized, at least in engineering education per se, is more of softer, what's considered softer skills, but what I would say is actually just as important, which includes project management, resource management, essentially when you have how to prioritize tasks to meet certain deadlines, how to work with finite resources, how to coordinate various subgroups or engineers who are working in different disciplines towards a single project, which I've actually had to do a considerable amount of lately. So I would say definitely those skills are just as important, if only because they are, I would say, harder to develop just from what typically an engineering education, unless it's from your capstone project. But other than that, courses, just technical courses, really don't cover that in any depth. And I think that's something you can only really learn through either project experience or work experience. But yeah, to recap, I would say that there's both technical skills and non-technical, but still highly important skills that are definitely useful for interns.
Very good, thank you. And I think, Vince, you had, from a guidance navigations control perspective, what skills or requirements an intern might want to bring?
Yeah, so I think at least something like this kind of ties into things I really like about AV, but one thing is that the people here are very versatile. If you go to different defense contractors or large companies, you'll find people who get extremely pigeonholed into doing one thing, and that's all they do for their entire careers. That's not the case here at AV. Really, people here are expected to be able to adapt to different problems and solve very different problems well. And I think that's the most important skill, more than any like direct, well, MATLAB, Simulink, all that stuff is important, but you can learn it if you have a very versatile skill set and are really good at learning things. I think that's very important here at AV, and it's something that has made me want to stick around.
Thank you so much. And we had an answer or a question come up in the chats or Q&A tool, sorry, that says, before you get hired as a software engineer, do you have to have a bachelor degree or certification in certain software? And I can answer that. So all of our job descriptions and postings will have the basic requirements. We do want our full-time software engineers to have that background in education, the degree. We find that it helps with the skills, the things that you'll be doing on the job. And Nicholas, I think maybe you could elaborate too, as far as which courses, or I know you mentioned C++ or C#. Could you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. So for the projects that I'm working on, at least, the main language is C#. So, but if you know other languages in C family, that's pretty much just as good because they're quite similar. And some knowledge about CSS could also be useful, since at least for my work, because I'm working with UI automation, like pressing buttons automatically on the application. And those buttons you can find them using CSS. So that's also helpful. More generally, if you can have good like code comprehension skills, or at least good like visualization, like if you can visualize how the program works if someone explains it to you, like how all the different parts fit together, I think that would be a helpful skill to have.
Well, we'll go ahead and move on then to Haley with regards to mechanical. If Haley, can you share mechanical engineer? I know you talked about projects that you get to work on briefly.
Okay. Being a mechanical engineer, I think it's a great major, especially being an intern at AV because you get to be on a lot of different projects. I mean, some stuff is coding, some stuff is designing new parts, helping design a whole drone, just parts to it, coming up with changes to a drone because maybe a part isn't working how they want it to. So you need to come up with a new design. There is some you'll do some ECOs also. But a lot of it, you just get a lot of experience out of it. A lot of stuff you learn from school, you'll also apply at this internship. So you'll get a lot out of it.
Great. Thank you so much. Vince, can you address the question that came in regarding to projects tailored to their interests and skill sets? I think it was a multi-part question. We'll start with that.
So something that I did when I was an intern is after my first few weeks here, just being assigned very basic tasks, I looked around and figured out what needed to be done for the HAPS airplane GNC system, and that hadn't been done yet or was kind of being neglected. And I found something that I was interested in, and I took the ball and I ran with it. I think that's really what you should do. There are also other things you can do. So we have internal R&D funding. And if you're able to pitch to management an internal R&D project that would have some kind of business benefit, that's happened. I've not when I was an intern, but I've heard about previous interns who have come in to do one specific project that they pitched, and just doing it, owning it the whole way through, and that just being their internship is doing that one specific project. So that's something I've heard of happening, at least in HAPS, like my project, the high altitude platform or high altitude pseudo satellite. There are some other parts of this question. Yeah, to what extent are these projects related to the company? They will be related to the company in that you have to come up with some kind of business justification for them to pay you to do it. And usually that's going to be improving some product or providing some service, building. So for example, the one I heard about was building an optimization software for the design of the airplane that a PhD student did a couple of years ago for HAPS. But interns be working with other full-time employees, other interns, or independently. So I was the only intern on the GNC for HAPS this summer. But there were other interns that I did interact with that were in the same area as me, that I saw every day. So it kind of depends. There are some programs maybe, for example, we had two electrical mechanical interns that both worked on the batteries for the airplane, and they worked together almost every day. So it kind of depends. The answer to every question is it depends, but I hope that's a good answer.
Thank you. I think Thomas will piggyback that question.
Yeah, so I would say you definitely have opportunities to branch out into your areas of interest. So for me, I suppose my areas of interest would be, flight testing and simulation work, both of which I've had the opportunity to work on so far. But I would say, obviously, to a certain extent, what you do is dependent on your department and what projects need additional person hours or support or just work done on them. But you definitely have the opportunity to not only work on things that are in your area of interest, but also to diversify your interests if that is something that you would be looking into. So for instance, if you're more focused on the software side, then you would possibly be able to branch into I suppose, a more mechanical or electrical based area, depending on the projects you work on. I'm not really sure there would be a general all-encompassing answer to that, just because to a large extent, it really is dependent on what department you're in, what projects you end up working on, and basically the fine details. But I would say you definitely have the opportunity to branch out if you're interested in that.
Great, thank you. I think Haley, you're up next. Would you be able to?
Yes. On any trainings that you may have, you don't have too many trainings to do. I mean, on day one, you get hired, you'll have a full day of training to go to, but that's pretty much the only training that I really had besides any other training. Just people that help me on projects, they're always willing to help you out on stuff that you don't know. So you don't really have to be too concerned about if you come into AV and maybe you just don't know how to do something. They are willing to help you out a lot. So don't worry too much about that, because somebody will always know what to do.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Haley, for that. Another question came in. When given a task you were not prepared for, did you have the resources to learn what you needed to succeed? This could include taking a class, talking to a mentor, etc. Malcolm, could you maybe share your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, because it's pretty applicable to what I was working on. At first, coming into the internship, I had like a rudimentary knowledge of C. And as a mechanical engineer, I would say programming is not my strong suit. But having made that clear to my mentor, like he allowed me the time to get up to speed and go up that learning curve, because they understand as interns that you don't know everything off the bat. And I think learning experiences are really valued at AV, like in the autonomy group, in our biweekly meetings. There'll be somebody presenting on a research area that interests them, just so the whole group can learn. But in addition to that, there are certain like learning courses that department heads will try and facilitate. Like there was a course in which I could learn how to use OpenCV to do machine vision. And throughout the summer, there have been other opportunities like that to work with other AV employees on whether or not they're interns. Actually, most of them wouldn't be interns. Learn different areas that everyone else can benefit from. So I guess to sum up, there's people award you the time to learn what you need to know and be understanding. And in addition to that, there's always time to learn new skills.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have a couple other questions that were sent to us ahead of time. Some of them are similar and relate to the type of work that our interns get to do during their internships. I think we've shared a couple stories about that. So maybe we'll head over to the live Q&A session and see if any of our panel members, if you can open that up and see if there's any that stand out that you might be able to answer. First one I see is from Nicholas Tan. Is the internship hiring process only conducted in the late fall or still available in the spring? And I can help actually answer that. So right now we're going to be posting our internships. Hopefully no later than Monday, we'll kind of start trickling them in. We'll have our mechanical, we'll have electrical, we'll have GNC, and then you'll start to see some other ones pop up to autonomy and systems test and those sorts of things. So, keep your eyes peeled with Way Up and our profile and follow us so that you can be notified as soon as those post. Another question, and this one is for Haley, I think. As a mechanical engineering intern, what are some of the requirements that may be desired?
Some requirements. You have to have knowledge of some types of materials. You need to definitely be knowledgeable in, let's say, what parts you could use. Let's see. like, why couldn't you use a part on a drone because of like how much it weighs? So you need to be able to think about which type of material would weigh the least amount, but be also the most efficient to use in this aircraft, because at AV, the drones are very lightweight. So that is a huge factor. Just do well in school, in your classes, pay attention. Before applying to AV, I didn't have any experience really in engineering, because I actually only changed my major about a year before I even applied to AV. So I didn't have much background in it. So you don't need to worry about that too much. So just be willing to come into this internship ready to learn, be open, listen to people, what they say, and really just benefit from the experience that you have.
Thank you, Haley. We have a few other live questions regarding the internships posting. I think it's being answered by our Way Up team in the chat box. But yeah, again, sign up and you'll be notified of those so that you can apply. So Aiden, that question I think you had asked, and then Carolina, where can we apply for the positions? Again, the links aren't live. You'll be notified as soon as they are, which should be within the next week. Let's see, for someone graduating in spring 2021, we don't have much professional experience and are looking for some. Can we still apply for an internship? I think I mentioned it was one of our frequently asked questions that you need to be enrolled in a program. So going into the fall, if you're going to be taking a master's class or something, so that you're kind of in between. Otherwise, you're looking at towards more full-time opportunities. So that's, I think, Akili. Sorry if I say your name incorrectly. Let's see. Does the phone screen, other parts of the interview process involve technical questions? Or is there a lot of emphasis on soft skills? I mean, from a recruiting standpoint, you want to have it all. And I think if there's enough interest, we may host another session via Way Up where we kind of give tips and tricks on, what AeroVironment would be looking for in a intern resume. But I'm sure someone from my team could probably share maybe Vince, like what things did you maybe have on your resume that stood out?
So there are always, the filter that everyone talks about in jobs. I would suggest tailoring your resume. It's hard work, but if you go in and read we have a recruiter who hires people nodding her head. So that's how you know I'm right. So go in and read the rec, and if it says must understand C++, go into your resume and type, I did blank project in C++, and be specific. Okay. Or must understand MATLAB. Go in and put, I use MATLAB for a control design project in blank class doing this, and be very specific. I think that in resumes, I think the most important thing is being specific and also not lying. Anything in your resume is fair game that they can ask you. So if it's in there, you have to really know it and really be able to talk in depth about it. Agreed,
100%. Making sure that the qualifications or what's being asked of you in that job description, you're going to want to speak to that in your resume. And that goes not only for us, we certainly hope that you apply to AeroVironment, but for anyone, applicant tracking systems where your resume gets put in there, there's going to be keyword hits. But you also, just like Vince mentioned, you want to keep it honest. You want to make sure that you do have that applicable experience or that you can speak to it, whether it's a class you've taken or maybe a past internship. So great answer to that one. We had another live question from Ian. My degree incorporates elements of software and computer engineering, as well as electrical and mechanical. Consequently, I tend to apply to multiple internships. We see that a lot at a single employer. Does AV keep interns' applications on resume for file for consideration if roles are made available? So you could do one of two things. You could apply to multiple positions, which I would encourage if you want to be seen on that specific role. However, if we're looking at you as a candidate and we say, wow, here's a really strong candidate, maybe not a fit for our GNC group, but certainly a fit for maybe our embedded software team, we do keep that on file and we have access to it and we can view that. So I hope that helps. And are internships offered year round or only in summer? And this was another common question that came up. Right now, we are sticking to our summer program. We did have a few co-ops this last term that started a little bit earlier and ran a little bit longer. But for the sake of the experience that we have and just the size of our team, we want to keep it for a summer internship. If that changes or opens up, again, we'll make it known on our website. We'll make it known via Way Up if that does change. As you probably heard from some of our intern team, occasionally the internship will be extended. So if they were originally scheduled to end in September, but the team had a need to keep them and they were able to stay a little bit longer, as a supplemental employee, they can be on as an intern for 6 months. In Haley's case, she's a returner, a 2-time summer returner, and is working part-time until May. And so we actually transitioned her into a role that was an associate engineer and part-time so that she could accommodate her school schedule. So there is flexibility there, but typically we like to stick to just that 8 to 10 or 8 to 12 week summer program. Okay, we have a few other questions. Let me make sure. And team, feel free to jump in if I've missed any and you want to answer one.
Hey, Julia, there's a question from Nico about when's the best time to apply for entry-level jobs? And the answer is yesterday.
Yes.
You need to...
Yes. Yeah. So as soon as you see them, definitely. You want to apply as soon as you see them. We fill roles, especially our entry-level roles, very quickly. And that's why you won't see a whole lot of level 1s or level 2s listed on our site. You'll see a lot of senior staff, maybe even a level 3, but that requires 5 to 8 years of experience in the workplace. So yeah, if you see something pop up, you can actually sign up for notifications on our careers page in your field. So say you're looking for a mechanical engineering entry-level role, you can set up a notification. I also encourage everyone to follow us on LinkedIn. Our social medias, we post roles there as well. So if you don't see it in one place, you'll see it in the other. All right, any other questions here? First come, first serve. This is from Aiden. Are they first come, first serve type of position? If I take my time to apply and maybe wait a week or two and send an application, would that affect the way my application is reviewed? Not necessarily. So after we post, we're going to keep that open until we fill the role. So we're reviewing, our managers, hiring managers are reviewing all the qualified applicants and scheduling interviews through the month of November through December. And then typically we'll start making offers in December and into January as well. We get past the holidays. And so I've seen offers go out as late as January, February even. And also if somebody decides, I actually can't make this commitment, occasionally, rarely, but we'll have some drop off and maybe a position or two might open up. And I'm sure my Way Up team on the line can vouch for that because we hired, I think, 3 or 4 positions right before they started in May. So great question, Aiden. Thank you. And we have 2 minutes left. I know there's going to be more questions and we probably didn't get to all of them, but what we can do is have Way Up help us out by, collecting all of your questions. We'll answer the ones we can. My team will help answer those questions too. And then we will have something sent out as kind of a follow-up to this session. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody joining us today, taking the time to learn more about our company, to hear from our awesome panel members. We look forward to having more of these sessions in the future. And yeah, thank you so much. Everybody take care and have a great night.